Chicago, Illinois. 150 members of the millennial generation are meeting to discuss the financial challenges they are facing. This meeting followed on the heels of 80 Million Strong, the inaugural gathering of millennials that focused on the economic condition of their generation.
I'm Maya Nista, and I'm the CEO of Mobilize.org. The millennial generation definitely shares a sense of urgent need to take action to improve the economic state of young America and put all Americans on a sustainable path.
It's very difficult for our generation because the debt situation, we're the one inheriting that, we're the one paying it off.
I think the important thing about bringing all of these young people together with different ideas for solutions is that we learn from each other.
Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Sheneke and this is Brandon Atchinson, and we're presenting our project, WeCan'tPayThatTab.org.
The national debt represents the government's inability to live within its means.
So I don't think that it's a Republican or Democrat issue. It's really it's an issue for everyone.
I think the solution to it is going to be multifaceted. It's going to have to be fought on multiple fronts.
We can't afford for something else to happen.
I think the really scary part for us is it's kind of being handed to us on a plate and said, here you go, have fun with this. Congratulations, this is your problem. So there's this pressure to figure it out.
The national debt, or total federal debt, includes money that the government owes to programs like Social Security and Medicare, and debt it owes to the public. Because public debt has direct impact on the economy, it's the number we pay closest attention to. By the end of the year, the federal government will owe an estimated $9 trillion to the public. So just how much money is $9 trillion? With a number this large, it helps to compare it to the size of our overall economy, our gross domestic product. Our GDP is estimated to reach $14.6 trillion by the end of 2010. This ratio is known as our public debt to GDP and is the number most experts use when discussing our national debt because it is a way to determine how much we have borrowed relative to our national income. By the end of this year, our public debt to GDP will be approximately 62% and growing quickly. As with any loan, the more we borrow, the more we have to pay back with interest, and therefore cannot spend in other areas. Within 12 years, interest will be the largest item in the budget if we don't change course. Since 1789, the year our federal government was formed, we've had our ups and downs with the national debt. Wars and the Great Depression created high debt levels, but we'd always been able to bring debt back down to manageable levels, even after World War II, which is when our debt to GDP was at its highest point ever. Then, beginning in the 1980s, the national debt began growing quickly, despite the fact that our country experienced relative peace and prosperity throughout that time. Except for a period in the late 90s and early 2000s, when our government was running budget surpluses, our federal budget has consistently been in the red, and the national debt has been on an upward path as a result. At the rate we are going, we will pass the debt levels we saw at the end of World War II in just 10 years.
Well, the debt crisis we face is entirely of our own making. We have chosen to borrow so much money, and now we've borrowed more and more from foreigners.
Last year, of the money that we borrowed, 68% of it came from foreign sources. Those foreign sources are warning us that they're increasingly impatient with our inability or unwillingness to tackle this debt explosion. If they would decide not to continue to loan us the money, we would then be in a very tough situation. We would either have to raise interest rates dramatically, or cut spending sharply, or raise taxes dramatically.
This is what debt does. It constrains you and puts you in a position where you're not going to be able to respond to crises that may confront future generations.
If we stay on our present course, in a little more than 20 years, estimated spending levels will be twice as large as projected revenues, and debt held by the public will exceed 200% of GDP. Life in America, especially for younger people who will be left to pay these debts, will be much different than it has been for their parents and grandparents.
And what are the most immediate action steps that our generation can take to improve this problem?
There are specific root causes that lead us to this debt.
We've mentioned instant gratification a lot in this conversation and responsibility.
I came to this for personal reasons and some more idealistic reasons. My parents did everything by the book. They tried to be in a position where when they retired that they wouldn't be any type of a financial burden on their children.
Well, if you told me a year ago that 40% of our net worth, our retirement, wouldn't be around, I wouldn't have believed that that was going to happen that fast. For sure, we thought that was locked and loaded.
In the past year, Drew's parents, Margaret and Stephen, downsized twice, from a large home in the suburbs to a large apartment, and then to a smaller apartment in the city.
Well, I'm glad I'm not a young parent right now. See, when I was a young parent, everything was up, all right? Your career, the possibility for making money, you know, six-figure salaries were the minimum, you know. That's not the case today. They'll be lucky to make $80,000, and, you know, their whole lifestyle is going to be very different. It's the reality of life. My parents grew up with the Depression. They didn't expect anything, and they were always grateful for what they got. We were trained to expect. You know, we're the first generation where everybody went to college. We expected the world, and turned out we got large chunks of it. But now I think it's probably receding back to a more realistic world, but they're going to have to deal with that, and I understand it, and I think they understand it too.
As the millennials face a much different world than their parents enjoyed, they are also confronted with the challenge of dealing with a government they can't afford.